going to be ran. The thickness of the metal, we will punch in .06. Enter. Material type, we will go steel. You have your options of stainless, aluminum, and other, which we covered previous. We'll make it steel. The length of the metal is the amount that will be bent. In this case, 3 inches. So you simply put that in. Now, it shows outside dimension or inside dimension. That will be determined by your engineers or based on the drawing you're given. To make the product, it should say inside or outside. We will go with outside dimension. Once those have been determined, then you'll go to the next page. At this point, we're going to start our drawing. The first thing it wants is a width. A width is your back gauge setting. This will be a linear drawing. So you will start from the left and go to the right. In this case, let's say, let's make it 3 inches. There's a zoom feature. You can zoom in. If you're doing small, you can go full page. Reduce. What you will do now is you will hit the right arrow. At this point, it asks for an angle. If you are going to be doing an angle in increments of 45 degrees, you will select the box there and it will tell you you can select which direction you want it to go. In this case, I want it to go up. If it's not in an increment of 45 degrees, then you will simply put in what angle you want. If you want 95 degrees, you'll put it in 95 degrees. And you'll see it's slightly less. What I'm going to do is make it 90 for this purpose. You will hit the right arrow or next arrow. It asks for another length. I will put in 4 inches. Now follow the little red ball because that's where it shows the direction in which you're going. Then you'll hit the next arrow and it asks for an angle. I want a 135, or I want it to go down on a 45-degree angle from your baseline here, so I will select there. Now at this point, because the drawing is getting larger, I will decrease it a little. Okay? Now, based on coming off of a 0 to 180 degrees, which is flat, this angle actually is 225 instead of a 135 degree. But as long as your drawing is reflecting the drawing that you have in your hand, that's what you're hunting for. You'll hit next. You'll put in the width again. We'll make this one 5 inches. Next, because I'm going to be taking it up, I'll select this arrow again. Okay, then you'll hit next. The first thing that you will enter in a drawing is a measurement, and the last thing you'll put into a drawing is a measurement. At this point, I'll make the last one 4 inches. Once this is drawn and it looks exactly like the drawing you've been handed, you can hit finish. But I'd like to demonstrate other functions here, if I might. Let's say that you go to this point and you've added another line. What you will do is it's asking for an angle. Leave the angle where it's at. You'll go to next. Once it goes to width, you'll see a little red X. You'll touch that X and it asks, are you sure you want to delete this line? You'll say yes. You've deleted that line. At this point, you will hit finish. And it's asking for further basic parameters. You will select your punch, highlight it in blue. You will select your die, highlight it in blue. Information A, C, E, and D, you'll see are whited out. Those areas are there so that you can change given information on whatever punch you're utilizing. The machine needs to know if your punch is different than what comes with the machine so that it can determine whether or not there will be an interference bend. So if you put a punch in other than what comes with the machine, these parameters should be measured and entered into the program at this time. These parameters are not asked for in your punch library. This is to augment your punch library for use of a punch only in the auto run mode. You will hit next page. At this point, we're going to simulate the bend. You will go through and you'll hit bend. There's step 2, bend, and step 3. Now, go to your function keys, and what you can do at this point, let's go back to step 1. We're going to hit unbend, unbend. At this point, if you use the swap key, if you follow the little red ball where you started your drawing, when you hit swap, you'll notice the little red ball came out the other direction. The computer did a sort, and that's how it's decided it wants to bend this material for you in the shortest amount of time. Now, on the first and the last step, all you can do is swap those two. But any bends in between, let's go to step 2. The machine's showing a 90-degree bend. Let's say that you want the 135 bend first. What you will do is you will move the positioning around with your arrows. Now you'll notice that step 2 is actually 135 degree. Myself, I would rather stay with what the computer, in this case, has chosen, so I'm going to swap it back. That's what those keys are for. Now, I'm going to bend the next step. At this point, you will notice that your bag gauges drop down to meet the tip. On some machines that do not have the R-axis, this cannot be achieved. And also, your R-axis may not have enough travel to achieve the length in which is needed to accommodate. So what you would do is take and touch back gauge, and you will notice now that the back gauges come up here. This will automatically activate the automatic retract feature in auto run. At this point, once you've established this is exactly like you want it to bend, you will go back through. Ensure that everything is exactly like you want it. And then you will hit save. Now, it goes into a code program so that you can go through. You'll see we're on step 1 of 3 steps, and you've got 3 different pages on each step. You can review this information to ensure that your drawing and the code reflects exactly what you want your product to be. So then you'll go next step, review step number 2, go to step 3. You will see that the computer automatically selected the back gauge retract because you selected it in your simulation. You will go through and review that information. If all that information is proper, then you will save to the computer. Now we're going to do a code program. What you will do is you will go to Product. Now, at Product, as mentioned before, you can either create a new program or edit an existing program. In this case, we'll create one. What you will do is go to New. You will go to Code. You will tell the computer how many steps you want. In this case, we're going to use 3 different steps. You will select 3, enter. The thickness of the metal, we'll use 0.06, enter. The material type, which we will be utilizing steel, okay. You will go to the next page. Once you get to this page, your step 1 of 3, you will simply fill in the information according to what you want to bend. My first angle will be 90. The correct angle you will not put here. You will do any corrections in the auto run mode and it will be saved to your program. You want to keep your program virgin. In other words, keep your 90 at 90. You do not want to change your angle. You want to keep it at 90. You will select the right punch and die. Proper length. In this case, we'll say 30 inches. At this point, you will go to the next page. You will establish your x-axis or your back gauge. We will put 3 inches. Your correct x will also be changed in the auto run mode. Your x angle is your x apostrophe. This machine does not come with that, but if there was an x apostrophe, you could put what degree of angle you wanted at this time. R axis, if you want your back gauge up or down, you would at this point put that in. Your correct R would also be performed in the auto run. Side up or down. This is simply to tell the operator if they need to flip the metal. In this case, we're going to leave it in the up position. Next page, we want to put in dwell time. We'll change that from the default of 5 seconds, we'll change it to 4 seconds. That comes into play when you're utilizing your dwell time or your auto return mode. At this point, we will go to the next step. Come back up to the top. The next bend we're going to do will be a 90 also. You will select your punch and your die. In this case, we've got 1 punch, so it's going to be punch 1, but in your application, you may have a variety of punches. You will have to select the correct punch. We are on punch number 2. You'll hit OK. The length again, we'll put in at 30 inches. Come down to the next page. I went 1 too far. And we'll put in 5 for the back gauge. Side will also be up on that. Come down to the last page. We'll change. Dwell time to 4 seconds. Go back up to the top. Go to the next step, and final step, step 3. My third step is going to be 135 degrees, which will give us a 45-degree bend up. You're working off 0 to 180 degrees. Punch, die, length 30 inches, page down. We will put 4 inches on your back gauge. Now here, because I flipped the metal, you'll want to show side down. The operator needs to know whether they need to flip the metal or not. Change the dwell time, 4 seconds. And on this application, with the product that I'm bending, on the third bend, because there's a 90 facing down, the back gauge needs to retract so that it doesn't interfere with the back gauge. You will select retract. At this point, you will save it, and it will ask you for the name. If you remember, In drawing, you named it first. In code, you will name it last. We will also call it 1, 2, 3. You can have the same name in both drawing and code because you're under two different registers. You'll hit OK. Your program's complete.